Hey listeners, before we get into episode 2, Sabrina and I wanted to quickly follow up on specialized high schools because there was a big announcement right after we aired episode 1.
The test has to go.
At a middle school gymnasium in Brooklyn on June 3rd, Mayor Bill de Blasio announced a plan to replace the specialized high school admissions test.
There is no great college in America that chooses its students based on a single standardized test.
That's right.
Harvard doesn't do it, Yale doesn't do it, you go down the whole list. And the kids who then are going to those schools do not have the benefit of learning with other people who don't look like them.
We won't get into the full details of the new plan, but essentially it would give the top 7% of students from every middle school admission to the specialized high schools. According to the mayor's office, the plan would increase the percentage of Black and Hispanic students at specialized high schools from 9% to 45%.
And despite what some opponents are saying about how this would water down the quality of the schools, city data show that students' overall math and English proficiency would increase.
But not everyone is happy with the plan.
When you compete, it's competed on excellency. You can't punish the excellence. People work hard.
Everyone has an opportunity to sign up to take the test. If you step forward and you sign up, then you're up for the challenge. If you didn't, then you didn't want to be challenged.
A lot of opposition has come from Asian American groups. Asian students make up a slight majority of specialized high schools, even though they account for just 15% of students overall. Here's a clip from a press conference organized by the Coalition of Asian Americans for Civil Rights.
I do packet after packet, practice test after practice test. I have to tell you, it's torture, but in the end, I know I'm going to succeed in my goal to attend Stuyvesant. Now, if the mayor decides to take away the SHSAT, you're telling me I've been working this hard, doing everything I have for absolutely nothing. That is the definition of unfair.
Sabrina, what did you think of when you heard that clip?
Well, I do understand where he's coming from. Some students have made real sacrifices to prepare for this test. However, there are other students who don't even have the opportunity to make those sacrifices. We shouldn't allow some students to have an advantage over others in a public system.
So we'll see how this plays out. The proposal has an uphill climb to make it through the state legislature, and the session ends next week, so it probably won't get taken up until next year.
With that, here's episode 2, the other end of the spectrum.
What I think about when I hear the word college is a dream, a destiny, and where I learn knowledge at. I think college is a good place that's peaceful. I think college is a place where you get to follow your dreams and get to live a happy life and become famous.
I like to go to college because you could learn new languages.
I want to go to college to learn the population of people in different countries.
I want to go to college to learn how to tell weather.
I want to go to college so that I can create all kinds of stuff to help Earth be more better.
These are third graders at Achievement First Aspire Elementary School in Brooklyn's East New York neighborhood. I remember in elementary school, we had this college day where teachers hung up signs of different names of colleges, and we were all wearing these shirts that had quotes on them about college. I actually still have mine. It says, "Plant the seed of knowledge, see it blossom in college."
Yeah, in my elementary school, we went on several college trips, and even our classrooms and homerooms were named after colleges like NYU.
But the reality is, the majority of students who look like us, meaning Black or Hispanic, will not graduate from college. About 1 in 5 African American and Hispanic 25 to 29-year-olds has a bachelor's degree. Compare this to 2 in 5 white and 3 in 5 Asians in the same age bracket. In this episode, we're focusing on 2 New York City students whose stories help us understand why these gaps exist and how we can close them. I'm Naida Sam, a senior at the St. Anne's School in Brooklyn.
And I'm Alberto Lugo, a sophomore at Achievement First University Prep, also in Brooklyn.
You're listening to Miseducation, a podcast where students take you inside New York City's segregated and unequal high schools.
15 years ago, the graduation rate in New York City was 51%. We've gone from 51% to 72.6% graduation rate in those 15 years.
This is Mayor Bill de Blasio at a press conference last year.
51% of our graduates we can say squarely from last year, we're college ready.
De Blasio fails to mention the major disparities in these stats. There are high schools that have a 100% college readiness rate, while others have rates in the single digits.
And by college readiness, we're talking about the way the city university system defines it, based on graduation exam scores. Essentially, college readiness means that students will not need remedial courses when they get to college.
Naida, what's your school experience been like?
Well, my educational experience really took a turn in 5th grade when I was chosen to be a part of Prep for Prep, which is a 14-month-long educational program. It takes high-achieving students of color from elementary and middle schools and places them in top independent private schools in New York City. That's how I got into St. Anne's. And before St. Anne's, I went to Lenox Academy in Canarsie, Brooklyn for 6th grade.
What was that transition like?
Well, for one, St. Anne's is a predominantly white institution, which was a culture shock to me, coming from a school where the majority of people were black. And it's also different for other reasons, some of them being that we don't get grades, we don't have uniform, and we can call teachers by their first names.
Wait, what? You could call teachers by their first names?
Yeah, it's crazy, I know. But I would say that it prepares its students for college. The student body is small, each class is about 15 students, which makes it easy to build a relationship with a teacher, and we have a wide range of electives from classes like 3D modeling to playwriting.
Wow. Well, in my high school, they really emphasize grades, like crazy. For example, if you have a B in a class, it feels like you have an F. And there are tons of students who constantly worry about their grades and always check their grades online. That reminds me, let me go check my grades right now.
Alberto, get back on track.
Sorry. As a result of all this pressure and hard work, every senior at my school gets accepted to college.
So it seems like today, no matter the type of high school you go to, one of the primary purposes is to prepare students for college. And schools can do that in very different ways.
But some schools in New York City do way better than others.
You're going to hear from 2 students who go to schools that are on opposite ends of the college readiness spectrum.
Let's get to it.
We used to read 2 pages a day, not because we were analytically breaking down how many literary devices were being used or anything, but because the teacher couldn't control the classroom.
This is Muhammad Dean. He goes by Dean. We both have a real passion for music. I specialize with beats, but Dean is a talented rapper.
Like vaccination, skill never complacent, everything amazing, no compensation. Bars against others, mass incarceration.
Dean is the son of working class immigrants. His modest upbringing influences his artistry, and it has also influenced his educational opportunities.
I took the specialized high school test, and I got like around a 440, and I needed a 480 for Brooklyn Tech. A lot of my friends that were able to afford the SHSAT prep courses were able to get in. And I think it really reflected when I took the test. I'm like, this is not something I learned in school.
With specialized high schools out of the equation, Dean was left to choose from the other 400 plus public high schools in New York City.
The high school process was like, it wasn't really a process because there was no guidance or mentoring. So if you were like a first generation student or, a student of immigrants and everything, then you were kind of like screwed in the process, because if you're not part of the community and everything, you don't get the same access in a way.
It's a daunting process for 8th graders. You receive a giant directory with information and stats on every school. You rank up to 12 schools, and then the DOE matches you with one. It's not like elementary school where you're assigned to a school in your neighborhood. It's called open choice.
It was also hard to read the directory book because they never broke down what's an AP class. What's the benefit of an AP class? All these other things weren't given to us. We were just told high school is what you make of it.
Found much support from the school, and because his parents were unfamiliar with the process, the decision about where to attend high school fell to Dean. Victory Collegiate caught his eye.
The book had Victory Collegiate as an amazing school. I'm in 8th grade. I'm like a 12, 13-year-old kid. I have so many other things to deal with. I'm looking at it, it's saying A, B, and then the extracurriculars like fencing, journalism, French. It's in my neighborhood, and it has like so many great resources and everything. So I ended up applying to Victory Collegiate, getting accepted there. And then when I went there for the orientation, it was completely different than I imagined. The first thing was that around 70% of the extracurriculars noted in the book, they were not there. Like when I'm like, oh, so where's like the journalism club and the fencing club? They're like, oh yeah, that was 2-3 years ago. And at that point, I knew I messed up.
Victory Collegiate is located at the sprawling South Shore campus in Canarsie, which is near the Jamaica Bay in East Brooklyn. The campus used to be a single school. At its heyday, South Shore was one of the largest schools in the nation. But like most large New York high schools, it has been divided up into several small schools. Victory Collegiate is now one of 7 schools on the South Shore campus. The total enrollment is 391.
When I went to the first day of school, I noticed that all 8 classes I had were with the same group of kids. So that was something that I was not expecting at all, because that's a very middle school-esque type of thing. And then I also noticed I didn't have a science class, which threw me off because most selective colleges want kids who took 4 years of math and science. So when I figured I had no science class, that was alarming.
The fact that Dean didn't have science as a freshman is crazy to me, because it's never been an option for me to take a science class during high school. It's always been required, even though I'm terrible at science.
Most of the extracurriculars I was interested in, such as boys cricket, fencing, journalism, French, they weren't part of the school no more. So it felt like I was basically lied to. It felt like I got like the bad end of a deal.
So, in the spring of his freshman year, Dean approached one of his administrators about his desire to transfer schools.
I got the form and everything, and I asked him for the date, and then I filled it out. And then when I came back to him on that date, he told me the deadline had passed. So at that point, he's like, oh, you must have misheard me and everything, but I'm 95% sure I did not mishear him and everything. And when I was telling a few, staff members about, and all these staff members I'm talking about right now, like, left the school, they told me, don't transfer, don't leave the school, we need more good kids like you. And at a certain point, you want to help the school and be one of the, strong students, but if you feel like your school isn't giving you access to a good education, but more importantly, isn't working with you to give you access to good education, you don't want to be in that place.
I can just feel Dean's frustration as he talks about this.
Yeah, in fact, if you read Victory Collegiate's entry in the high school directory, here's what it says. We provide a challenging academic program that fosters self-awareness and strong work habits. Our graduates are prepared for higher education and careers.
But only 6% of seniors in 2017 were considered college ready, according to City University benchmarks. The citywide average is closer to 40%.
Whoa.
Here's the other thing you need to know. Almost all of the students who go to Victory Collegiate arrive below grade level. In last year's freshman cohort, just 4 out of 82 students had passed the 8th grade state English test, and only 3 had passed math.
So you're saying the college readiness rate isn't surprising based on where the kids started?
Exactly, and Victory Collegiate is not an outlier. New York City has about 150 small high schools where less than 20% of incoming students are proficient in English or math.
Those schools are also the most segregated by race and class. Almost all of the students are black or brown and low income.
We talk a lot about specialized high schools. These are the schools at the other end of the spectrum, and we rarely talk about them.
Many of these schools have pretty good graduation rates, including Victory Collegiate. Last year, it was 76%, slightly above the city average. But a high school diploma cannot be the end goal anymore.
The focus is on this end outcome of high school graduation that actually 50 years ago meant something. Now, a high school diploma alone is very limited in what it can do for you.
This is Lazar Treschan, Youth Policy Director at the Community Service Society of New York.
We need to really reframe what a positive outcome of our public education system is away from merely high school graduation and really seeing it as an interim step towards a broader goal, which is readiness to succeed in a career, including post-secondary education.
The reality is, there are issues at Victory Collegiate that make thoughts of college readiness secondary. Dean once told me a story that I haven't been able to forget.
When people ask me what's the most profound or what's like the most vivid memory you'll recall of high school, people like, oh, this trip, this class, this teacher, this substitute. I'm like, I remember a day a bullet came through the window.
There were about 17 students and a teacher in the classroom at the time. Amazingly, the bullet flew past everyone and hit the chalkboard.
It literally came in between me and my friend, her name is Tatiana's head. We realized that it was a bullet. Half the class got on the floor and crawled out. Literally the day after the event happened, we were placed into the same room.
Dean told me that his teacher quit and that the class didn't learn much for the rest of the year.
The teacher after the event never reached out to us again, and we understand that a teacher is traumatized and everything, but at the same time, we're students. She's an adult and we're 16 and 17 years old, so if she can literally just leave the school and never contact the principal or fellow staff or the students again because it's emotionally shaken her up so much, then as 16-year-olds, how do we feel,
Here's Alberto with the rest of the story.
Dean is now a senior at Victory Collegiate, a couple of weeks from graduation, and despite not having access to many rigorous courses or extracurriculars, he found support outside of school in a citywide college prep program called Sponsors for Educational Opportunity, which allowed him to take extra classes on weeknights and Saturdays.
I was able to have real thought-provoking discussions because we'd break up into small groups, we'd do all these activities. The teacher would have extreme ease controlling the class. Because there were only 20 kids, it felt like we were all one cohesive unit. But then the other thing was that SEO was actually teaching me stuff. I learned how to use a semicolon, the difference between adjectives and adverbs, and I was learning all these things that I just didn't know. SEO had made me into like someone who can run marathons, and now I'm in school and I'm doing walking competitions.
The problem is, there's only so many spots in programs like SEO, and there are tens of thousands of students in high schools like Victory Collegiate.
Stress or things
While
like that.
Dean's story involves much about not having enough resources or preparation for the rigor he might expect to be greeted with in college, my friend Violet tells a different story.
The month of November, I don't think I had a conversation with somebody at lunch that wasn't about college. I honestly was so sick of it. After I told them where I got in, they were like, oh, expecting to hear somewhere better, somewhere more competitive.
Viola is a senior at the Poly Prep Country Day School in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn.
Since 1854, Poly Prep students have become national leaders in arts, science, government, education, philanthropy, and technology.
I don't think I'll ever get over the fact that I go to a school with a pond. The school has 2 tennis courts. It has a baseball field, a softball field, soccer field, football field.
She used to attend St. Anne's with me, but decided to transfer to Poly after 8th grade because of her concern that the St. Anne's math curriculum wasn't challenging enough.
There are 3 levels for most classes. There's the kids who need more extra help in that subject. There's the normal track that people follow on, and then there's the advanced track.
Already you get a sense of how the academic opportunities differ tremendously from what Dean experienced. There's a clear gap in resources. A Violet school, for example, has 6 college counselors, compared to the 1 guidance counselor at Dean's school, and they're about the same size. Part of the resource divide comes with the difference between public and private schools, but it isn't just the resources.
A lot of the students there, because it's a college prep school, it's sort of been hammered in all 4 years. You need to go to college, you need to go to college, you need to go to college, you need to go to a good college, you need to go to a good college, you need to go to a great college. And it sort of builds up like that. So I think a lot of students were already sort of obsessed with it and pretty self-motivated by that message being hammered in. I don't think there's anyone in my grade whose college counselor actually had a huge role in their college applications, reviewed their list and things like that. But, I don't think my college counselor read even a second draft of my personal statement.
I can definitely relate to this. It's kind of a given that once you're in these schools, you're going to go to a great college. It's an expectation. But when I listened to Dean's story, it seems like going to college was the exception. The dilemma at Poly Prep isn't college or not, it's which college and how prestigious.
I saw the matriculations from one of my friends' public school, and the best school someone got into, using the word best conventionally of course, was I think Binghamton or something like that. And the best school, acceptance rate speaking, that someone from my school got into last year was Princeton.
As for Violet, she plans to go to Tufts, a medium-sized liberal arts school in Massachusetts. She plans to study engineering, and even though she's well-prepared academically, she does have a hesitation.
I do think that the distant and formal relationships with my teachers will hinder my ability to cultivate real relationships with my professors.
While this is a valid concern, when compared to Dean's challenges, it seems minimal in the grand scheme of things. We realize we've only told you the experience of 2 students, but their stories help reveal the drastic differences in this massive school system. The promise of school is that it gives every student an opportunity no matter their starting point, but that promise is being broken. It seems like high schools are simply keeping the students on the path that society expects them to take.
That really resonates with me. And it reminds me of something Lazar from the Community Service Society said to us about college readiness.
We see huge disparity in the formal college readiness metrics across high schools in New York City, and those are pretty much line up with the income of the parents in those communities. What's less talked about, I think, is this more informal college readiness, which is this sort of informed post-secondary decision-making. Those disparities are even greater because in low-income communities, a lot of young people have to work during the summer.
I totally see this. A lot of my friends who aspire to have careers in medicine, law, and business have to work at McDonald's and Dallas BBQ and stuff to make money, even though they don't really want to work there.
But in higher income families, you see the ability for young people to take unpaid internships, do these programs on college campuses that prepare them. And those disparities are even greater. So what we're suggesting is a paid summer internship program where everyone in the city can do internships that will prepare them for college by igniting and using the passions and interests they have on their own.
I really like this idea because we know that college preparation doesn't stop over summer break. Those months are really crucial. But I do want to close by addressing the massive college readiness divide in our high schools.
I think it starts with having a more balanced mix of high-performing and low-performing students in each school, and not the extreme concentrations of one or the other that we currently have.
Sabrina, do you want to tell them about how you're working on this?
Yeah, so the Bell doesn't just support this podcast. We have another program called Teens Take Charge, a student-led movement for educational equity. Dean, whose story you heard, is also one of our leaders, and we actually have a proposal called the Enrollment Equity Plan that would create more academically diverse high schools, which we believe would raise college readiness rates. You can read about it at teenstakecharge.com. Just click on policy.
And if you're a high school student out there listening to this and you want to get involved in this podcast, Teens Take Charge, or both, reach out to us via our websites or social media.
Big thanks to Ms. Cashin from Achievement First Aspire Elementary and her students, the class of 2031.
I would like to go to LaGuardia.
The college I want to go to is Harvard.
I would like to go to the college that's on... Wait, which one is on Ellis Island?
We also want to acknowledge the support from reporters and editors at the Hechinger Report, a nonprofit outlet that covers inequality and innovation in education.
This episode was reported by Naida Sam and Alberto Lugo, whose original music you've heard in the background throughout the podcast. Don't forget to follow at Miseducation Pod on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and keep reaching out with your comments and feedback. We've really enjoyed your messages.
We're going to leave you with a spoken word piece from Dean. He goes by Maverick Dean on SoundCloud if you want to check out his music. This is titled School Segregation.
Harvard, Princeton, Yale, all the top Ivies. Growing up, I was told I could make a living, going to a community college or driving taxis. They say education is the same wherever you go, but if you plant a rose in the desert, how do you expect it to grow? Every decision in school is made without a student being informed or told, yet they tell us the system wants us to be bold. Talk about the school to prison pipeline. My school has a visualized, stand with me outside, freezing to death in the metal detector lines. With preconceived notions, they deem black and brown 14-year-old as crooks. We're too dangerous, apparently we don't have any textbooks. They say these students deserve to fail, they don't care. Do you know why? Maybe it's because the system tells them from day one, they won't make it anywhere. As the teacher finished speaking, we grabbed our bags, the bullet pieces through the window, shattering the glass. No, I'm not in a developing country. I'm in New York City, where the education system prioritizes soccer mom opinions over a brown child's safety. Even less of a concern is educational inequity. Slavery ended without reparation. Brown versus Board was passed, and our schools are still in segregation. They spit, ridicule, and tormented the Little Rock Nine, and now their grandchildren sit in segregated schools like mine. NYC, the city of dreams thriving off diversity. Times Square, Freedom Tower, Statue of Liberty. Oh yeah, the most segregated school system in the whole country. I'm not nice with my poetry, I'm just speaking what's necessary. The youth are the most critical thinkers, that's why they want to silence me. I'm trying not to let this impede me, but the public education system isn't equal in its distribution of opportunities. They rest at ease, the false promise of choice in our high school system infringes our right and liberties. I said schools a district apart have completely different facilities, feel me? No teacher resemble us, we're scraping for our identities. Kids ending up in schools they didn't apply for because of outdated directories, not enough. The colleges compare me to other kids through my SAT. They're giving laptops to borrow while our calculators don't have functioning batteries. Don't show pity or feel sad for me. Be bold, take action to give the education that was stripped away from kids like me. When they want to silence us, they don't love us. Quote MLK and say aggression isn't the way. But what about when Dr. King said an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere? So don't just take our voice as children and dismiss them. Many generations of children have been hurt by the system. The Ripple textbooks are a manifestation of their pain. MLK, Little Rock 9, Linda Brown. Don't let their sacrifices go in vain.